All right, aloha, free radicals. Welcome back to the Radical Independent. That is me. My name is Dave. You can support this channel via Patreon, also via PayPal. I will offer up an email where you can send your contributions, your one-time donations. I did receive a donation yesterday, and I really appreciate that because yesterday I had an issue with a video that got demonetized. Again, well after it had been posted. I think it'd probably been up for almost 18 hours. And then all of a sudden, it just went yellow. Which is bizarre, because typically, these algorithms are trained for all of this different language that you're using, titles. You can't use certain words, and it triggers the the demonetization algorithm. In fact, I saw Kim Iverson. She did a video about war, and instead of using the A, she put an S, WSR. And she's trying, I know what she's doing, she's trying to prevent her videos from being demonetized. This is how nuts things are when it comes to independent media and how difficult it is. In this video, though, I do want to talk in kind of like controversial terms here. I believe we've got another conspiracy on our hands and nobody really wants to talk about it. The conspiracy is that Tulsi Gabbard is being systematically eliminated from this process. You could say, well, her campaign is stronger than ever. She is registering in polls right now in New Hampshire, I believe, numbers like 5 and 6%, which would certainly beat, the criteria set by the DNC. But people are just turning away. People are covering other things now. They're not interested as much in what Tulsi Gabbard has to say. Tulsi Gabbard's latest interview with Primo Nutmeg that's an independent outlet, and I think she's going to be utilizing more independent media going forward. And that's the only way she's going to do this, because here are the questions from the mainstream media. So, since you've not qualified for the latest DNC debate, what is your plan moving forward? Are you staying in the race? As soon as you start asking that question, you've set up a parameter there that didn't exist before. And the perception, again, this is a rhetorical trick. Debate people use it. Everybody uses it to kind of pave the ground, get things ready for what is next. And in the case of Tulsi Gabbard, the media is basically saying, look, you're polling at 2%. And they're going to cite all the DNC-approved polls, or 1%, whatever it is. The DNC, they choose the most reputable polls. You're not doing well in those polls. You're doing great in Emerson and YouGov and these other polls that mysteriously the DNC has decided to not include when it comes to debate criteria. So what is your plan moving forward, Tulsi, and how do you get around this, and why even bother staying in the race at this point? Why not drop out, and why not support Bernie Sanders? There are a number of people trolling who have already made this case without being the news media. They are Bernie supporters who are Bernie or bust, and they have obviously some pent-up frustration from 2016. I don't necessarily blame them for being angry. And they look at Tulsi as like an obstacle. Basically, Tulsi needs to fall in line with the Bernie people. And I find that a very reprehensible type of attitude when I think Tulsi Gabbard is the better candidate. She's the better candidate. She's younger. She's more exciting. I think she would do really well in the heartland. I think she would beat Donald Trump easily. Now you can say, look, Bernie can do the same thing. Bernie, for instance, has more minority support probably than Tulsi, although I don't think anyone's taken the time to break that down to see how Tulsi is doing. I know Tulsi is bringing in a lot of independents, and here's the problem for Tulsi, okay? In a Democratic primary, and this speaks to my third-party diatribe all the time, in a Democratic primary, you need to get Democratic voters. So if you're a Republican in the state of Florida and you want to cross over and vote for Tulsi Gabbard, well, you've got to unregister as a Republican and register as a Democrat, which I've done, all right? But some people aren't going to think of that. They're going to get to the polling station and they're going to be given the Republican ballot. And they're going to be like, hey, I don't want to choose Bill Weld over Donald Trump. I want to choose Tulsi Gabbard over the establishment. And they can't do it at that point. The whole system is conspiring. Whether it's doing it willingly, whether it's doing it knowingly, whether it understands that it's doing it, it's much like the algorithm. Somebody had mentioned it to me. The way they've treated Tulsi Gabbard is much like the way the algorithm treats me. It's the same thing. And we all sit here and we think to ourselves, well, if we use wishful thinking, if we really focus on wishful thinking, and there is this little path, and I outlined it a couple of months ago. I really thought she'd get into this debate. And see, this is the problem with not getting into the debate, because Tulsi's voice needs to be heard. More people need to Google Tulsi Gabbard. Now, I've implored the independent media out there to maybe look at doing some kind of parallel debate with Tulsi Gabbard, Marianne Williamson. You could have Mike Gravel on just to add his perspective. You could have Howie Hawkins. Like I said, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this. And, that other video I did yesterday proves that people don't want to hear about that. But where are you going to go when some people are telling me, well, I'll just go vote for Trump again. And you're going to go vote for Trump again. Incredible. It's not going to solve any problems. If you're just protesting the Democrats, why not start a new movement rather than go back to the arms of a guy who is dividing this country? And I understand you think that's better than a corporate Democrat. I mean, Trump did fire, or Bolton quit. We don't know. He probably quit. Maybe because he knew he was going to get fired. Trump didn't like him, but Trump shouldn't have hired him in the first place. That's the funny thing. My response was, gee, great news, but here's a guy who shouldn't have been hired to begin with, because Trump ran on less intervention, not running around the world and creating chaos. Now, Trump hasn't fired Mike Pompeo. He hasn't asked Mike Pence to step down as VP. So there are plenty of hawks around him still. And this is not, if you're thinking that voting for Trump instead of sticking with Tulsi, or looking for a third way so we don't have to have perpetual endless war, you're delusional. This is just going to postpone the inevitable. It's like sticking with fossil fuels when we have technologies that can, run a car, for instance, on compressed air. All right? And it's true. And nobody wants to talk about that stuff because, again, it's the old, I'm comfortable. I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. Tulsi Gabbard is being systematically taken out of the spotlight. Now, she can do whatever she can to stay in, and we've got social media now, which is an advantage for somebody like Tulsi, where that didn't exist before. And honestly, you had to beg for crumbs from local TV or the networks or whoever in order to keep your campaign going. But I don't know if it's going to be enough because, again, the propaganda machine, sort of shooting the waves out at people and saying, well, everyone's talking about Elizabeth Warren now. Everybody. Did you know everybody's talking about her? And you turn on the TV and sure enough, everybody's talking about Elizabeth Warren. And then social media, all this money is being invested in Elizabeth Warren buying into various platforms and spreading her message of neoliberalism. And people are like, hey, at least it's better than Trump. And by the way, everybody knows this too. I'll throw a little propaganda out. Everybody knows that Elizabeth Warren is the worst candidate in the entire field to go up against Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has already made her look silly. All right. And the fact that her Native American heritage will be called into question, and she doesn't have a good answer on it. She's never apologized for it. And I don't think there's a workaround there for her politically. And not only that, but you've got this Ivy League type mentality that she has, and she represents affluent, white, suburban, white collar or retired people. That's who she represents. She's not going to do well with minorities, and a lot of minorities will probably consider Donald Trump again. And in the meantime, we should be building another movement if we're totally serious about the political system, and we're not just, like watching the game on Sunday, because that's kind of what people do with this. They watch the game and they go, okay, my team is losing, but maybe they'll come back after halftime. And it's no longer adequate to sit on your hands and watch the game, because the game is rigged and the game is conspiring against the people who would truly make a difference. A unifying figure comes along for the first time in ages. Some people have called Tulsi Gabbard the JFK of 2019 or 2020. I would definitely put her right there with JFK. And whether JFK's politics in 1962 fits within the 2019 framework, JFK bucked the establishment. He was tough when he needed to be tough. He was inspirational. He was diplomatic. I mean, I could go through a list of things. Obviously, there were some people that didn't like what JFK was about, and JFK's life ended prematurely because of that. So, are we up against the same thing with Tulsi? Yeah, we are. It's different. I'm hoping that she's safe, and I don't think her safety is in question here. I think what is in question is the fact that she's not safe from the slanderous attacks and the misconceptions and the media narrative, which has basically been packing up and moving on since she announced her candidacy. That's why I believe there's some type of conspiracy going on here, whether it's orchestrated, whether it's just subliminal. Somebody described it as everybody just gets into the newsroom and they already know what they believe, and they wink and nod, and nobody really talks about it. It's just when somebody comes along who goes against that system, much like Tulsi Gabbard was going against the establishment, then people tend to perk up, and that's when everybody, puts the wagons into motion and gets their little hedge going about their organization. And that's what's happening right now in the Democratic Party. So we all know that their ordained candidate right now, their coronation party for Elizabeth Warren, it's in full steam ahead. And look, I like Bernie Sanders. I don't think Bernie is tough enough to stand up to it. And everything was against Bernie the last time. And Bernie could have written books on this stuff. He could have built a political movement after the whole thing was over. He could have winked and nodded and said, hey, I'll endorse Hillary, but after that I'm done. I'm not going out on the campaign trail. I'm not going to be urging my supporters every day of the week to vote for her. You need to vote your conscience, and you need to just, move on after that, and we can build something better together, especially if, she loses, which she did. You would think the last 3 years would have been building a new movement, but instead we just come back to get slapped in the head again by the Democratic Party. So that's discouraging to me. Bottom line is, if you're a Tulsi supporter, you really should be looking for a big picture philosophy moving forward, a long-term philosophy. Also, don't go back to Trump. If you were voting for Trump before, don't do that. Please don't. And I'm a former Trump supporter. I'm asking, please don't do it. Don't even think about it. I'm not sure where the parallels are between Tulsi and Trump, but they're almost zero. Okay, that's why Tulsi would be such an effective candidate in a general election against Donald Trump, because she'd be Teflon. If you start to rattle her at all, it's going to be because you've said something that isn't true, and she's going to come at you with both barrels, and she's going to win the argument. We saw that when she just pretty much kneecapped Tim Ryan, and then you saw it again when she effectively ended Kamala Harris's presidential bid. That's why I know she would be a great commander-in-chief, because she wouldn't take crap from anybody. And that's who I want in the White House. But I don't want a buffoon in the White House who doesn't take crap from people. That's Trump. I want somebody who is measured and uses diplomacy and actually has human emotion. Have you ever seen Trump get misty-eyed about anything? That's bizarre. People mentioned this back when he was running, and all of his supporters were like, we're not electing Dr. Phil. We're electing a commander-in-chief. I don't care if he gets emotional. That round table where he sat down and basically said he had no regrets and he's been perfect and this and that. That's bizarre human behavior, okay, no matter how you slice it. And for those of you who, purport to be some type of religious inclination and have a faith of some kind, and you look at that and you look at what's important in life, Donald Trump is not your role model whatsoever, whereas Tulsi Gabbard would be a great role model for all the women, all the young women coming up, seeing that, look, Mom, I can be president like Tulsi Gabbard. I can put service before selfishness, I can see the best in all people. I can bring people together from very different political backgrounds, and Tulsi talks about that all the time in her stump speeches on the campaign trail. The problem is the media is just turning the dial, and we all have to keep it alive, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. I mean, I get demonetized on YouTube for just suggesting something that's very obvious, is that the Democratic Party does not want Tulsi Gabbard as their nominee. Demonetized. I'm not saying anything profane. I'm not swearing. I'm not dropping F-bombs every 30 seconds. There are other hosts that do that. I don't do it. It's not my shtick. It's not my lane. So, in any event here, thanks for tuning in and watching these videos. I'm going to keep on the Tulsi thing, but keep in mind there are going to be some other video topics that I cover, because I am in this for the long haul. Our political system needs to be completely revamped, and we got to start. We can't keep putting it off. It's like our political system is kind of like the fossil fuel industry. We cannot keep going back for more fossil fuels when the technology is there, the wherewithal is there, the impetus is there based on what's happening with the climate to do something different and to do something radical. And we have to change. And unless we change, we're going to get the same results. And then we're all going to have our doing the facepalm thing and saying, what happened? What happened? And it's us. That's what happened or didn't happen. All right. See you soon, everybody. Thanks for watching.